So this is a speaker meeting. Our speaker will share her experience, strength, and hope for approximately 45 minutes. We ask out of respect for our speaker to please remain seated until she has finished. It is my pleasure to introduce Emily.
Is this my water too?
Sure, it is now.
So we're taking a break in about 30 minutes. Hi guys, my name's Emily and I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to be here and grateful to be sober in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you're new, this is Eric, Dustin, and Dwayne. Welcome. I'm glad you guys are here. You know, you're in the right place. If you want to not drink, you're in the right place. And even if you want to drink, you're in the right place. And New Mexico, welcome. Glad you're back. Glad you're here. Glad you're visiting. And Mike and Russ, they got in the car. They drove me over, and it's fun. It's fun. You know, it's fun to do AA stuff. It's fun to do stuff in AA. If you're not happy and having fun in AA, you need to do more stuff. And if you're new into this group, you stumbled into a great group, you know, because it sounds like they're active, and everybody always whines and cries because they can't get sober, you know, it's Christmas and that and that. At Christmas time I think it's really the best time to get sober because there's a lot of activities. There's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of things to get involved in. And so, you know, just jump in and, you know, and come to the business meeting. Please come to the business meeting and just raise your hand and, you know, and just take a commitment because you're not going to know what you're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. I've learned that here. I've been around long enough to know that nobody really knows what they're doing. Everybody's just trying to do the best they can with what they got at the time. And it's AA and stuff just works out. Somebody brings cookies and everybody forgets that the treasury doesn't balance. You know, who cares? I don't care. We got cookies, right? You know, so whatever. So, you know, I encourage you to come and be a part of this home group. You know, it seems like an active, happy group. And if you're not involved in it, just get involved and see what happens. And so like I say, I'm glad to be here, and I'm alcoholic. I got sober the 11th day of January 2004. So if I stay sober for about 6 more weeks, I will be 18 years sober, which wows the hell out of me. And not me. You know, I couldn't even stay sober for 18 days. I could do 18 minutes. I could do that pretty good. But, you know, once I started, I couldn't stay sober for 18 days. Why would you stay sober for 18 days? Why would you not drink? You know, I don't know. I couldn't figure that out. But so I got sober in January, and I got a home group. My home group's Camp Verde group. It meets it meets all the time. And so if you ever get to Camp Verde, it's just down the way. You go down, you pick up 17, and you go north on 17, which kind of feels south. But anyway, and we go to the 7 p.m. meeting, 7 o'clock. And I got a sponsor. I don't have a sponsor in that group. I moved from L.A. about 8 years ago, and my sponsor's still in L.A. Her name's Deborah, and I call her every day and whine at her until she's sick of me, and she says, "Okay, Emily, go to the meeting," you know. I said, okay. So I got those 3 things, you know, and when I first got sober, I thought if you had those 3 things, you were stupid. You know, I just thought, oh, how lame. You know, you need help with your life and you can't do it, you know, yourself. You know, how pathetic. And so, well, here I am. I can't do it myself. So anyway, and if you're new, welcome. And, you know, my job up here right now today is to tell you what I used to be like, what I'm like, or what happened to me and what I'm like now. And the first thing I had to do in Alcoholics Anonymous was figure out, you know, they want you to say, I mean, the solution in Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought, was pretty drastic. I mean, if you haven't figured it out yet, you know, they don't want you to drink at all. And I was like, well, okay. You know, I got sober on a Sunday. It was a Sunday that year. And I was trying to not drink. You know, I was trying to control my drinking by not drinking. I tried all kinds of different ways. But anyway, I was trying to control my drinking by, you know, not drinking certain days. That was my technique at the time. And so I got sober on a Sunday. So, okay, Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and God, it got to be Thursday and Friday, and God, I've been good all week, you know. I mean, you know, what do you do on Friday? You know, I've been good. I need a reward, and, you know, for some reason I didn't drink. I mean, you know, and even if it rains, you know, they want you to not drink even if it's raining. And I'm just like, well, what do? You know, I used to always drink when it rained. You know, you'd watch, you know, and peek out the window and it's raining. And so that's the bad news. The good news is that they got a program here that if you follow what the people here are doing, you won't want to drink, even if it's raining, and on Fridays, you know. And Saturday night, here we are at a meeting, you know, and it's a pretty good deal. So anyway, but I had to figure out, my sponsor wanted me to figure out, you know, what an alcoholic was, and, you know, because I just raised my hand and said I was alcoholic, and I didn't really know what I was copping to, but everybody seemed to do it, and so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm one too, you know. And so she said, well, Emily, read the book. It's always in the book. She was a big book person, big book person. Read the book, read the book, read the book. And so I would read the book because I wanted to be a good baby, right? And so I'm reading the book, and we're talking about it on the phone, and I'm seeing her at meetings, and I didn't get it. You know, I didn't get what an alcoholic was. I thought alcoholics were men, obviously, right, girls? I mean, you just look at the men in the meeting. I mean, obviously. I thought they were men and they lived under the bridge and they drank out of a paper bag and they wore a trench coat and they wet their pants and lost their kids, they went to jail and, I mean, all of the stuff that I wasn't, that's what I thought an alcoholic was, because if an alcoholic was anything that I was, then that would make me alcoholic, and I don't want to be alcoholic because the solution is very drastic. And so, so I would read the book and I just didn't get it. And, well, I'm going to read the doctor's opinion. And, and then there's that part, before I got sober, I had read the back of the book, The Spiritual Experience. If you hadn't found that, it's 4 or 567 or something in the back of the book. And it talks about the spiritual awakening, and it talks about the personality change necessary to overcome alcoholism. And even before I had gone to meetings and quit drinking, I knew that that's what would have had to happen to me. I knew that I would have to become a different person. I would have to learn how to think differently in order to not drink. Because my only solution to life and problems was drinking. Rained, I drank. And so I knew that was coming. And so I read the book, and it talked about the craving. When you start drinking, you crave, and when you don't drink it, you crave it. And the doctor, and they thought it was an allergy, and that kind of baffled me because I have asthma. I can't hardly breathe right now, but anyway, I have asthma. And when I was a kid, I lived in St. Louis, and I got the wheezes, and I can't breathe. And so that was allergy to me. And so I'm like, well, when I drink, I don't get that. I can breathe just fine when I drink. And so I didn't understand what it was. And I was, I was maybe over 2 years sober before I finally got the bright idea, well, Emily, why don't you look it up in the dictionary? Because I'm a big dictionary person. And so I looked up allergy, and it says an abnormal reaction. And I was like, oh, that's not good news. Because that's what I have. I have an abnormal reaction. I don't drink alcohol and get hives and wheezes and, pimples or whatever. I drink alcohol and it just, oh, God, thank you. It relieves me of the bondage of self. It doesn't do that to my sister. My sister will have a glass of wine. She's one of those glass of wine people, with the finger, and it's only half full of the red wine. And, oh, God, just drink it. She kind of sips on it. It makes you crazy. Makes you nuts, And I'm just like, oh, my God. But she doesn't, when she starts drinking, she doesn't get that craving. We had dinner with her one time, and she had half a glass of wine, or I just blacked out. I couldn't even face it. And so she had wine. We were staying at her house because we didn't live here at the time, and she had wine open in her refrigerator, and the little cork thing was. I didn't drink wine, obviously. I drank beer, light beer, Bud Light, because I watch the calories. You don't want to get fat. And so the little cork thing was up, and I thought, oh, she's going to drink at the restaurant. Then she's going to go home and drink the wines in the refrigerator. The things, it's going to rot, And I didn't say anything. I said nothing. I was like, okay, I'm going to watch and see what she does. And so we get home, and I'm like watching her. And she, God, I don't even know what she did. She brushed her teeth and had a cookie and watched TV and put on her nightie, and I just was like, boing, because she didn't go and drink that wine that was, and she knew it was in there because he doesn't drink. I mean, he can, but he just doesn't, which I don't get either. And so, and I was like, God, and I was remembering that when I read about the allergy. Is that she doesn't get that craving. When she takes a drink, she doesn't have to have the next one. And I remember standing in the kitchen of my house, and I had made the mistake of drinking the one beer that was left in the refrigerator. And if you've ever done that, you'll know that that's a big mistake. Because I would have given you my children. I stayed home with my kids. I love my kids. I was president of the PTA, and I made cookies, and I rode bus with the band. And I mean, I was Miss Mom, and I love my kids to death. And I would have given you my kids. Yeah, you wouldn't even have to pay for them. I would have given you my kids for just one more beer. And I was like, oh, God, this is bad. And so when they talked about the craving, I was like, ooh, yeah, I get that. And then somebody in my home group said something about the bottom of page 26, when it says, or let's see, 26, 27, 28, it's 28. And it says, you get restless, irritable, and discontented. And I just read right over that. I didn't get it. And he said, Emily, that's alcoholism. And I was like, oh, that's not good news, because I have that. I mean, I'm not a man. I don't live under the bridge. I don't drink out of a paper bag, but I do have this craving, and I get the restless, irritable, discontent. I'm like, I'm painting myself in this corner. And so what finally got me is at the beginning of chapter 4, because I would read this stuff, and I'd read it, and I'd read it, and I'd read it. I just didn't get it. I just did not get it. And it says in the beginning of chapter 4, if when you honestly want to, you find you can't quit entirely, or when you start drinking, you can't control how much you take, you're probably alcoholic. And then the next sentence is bad too, because it says, you might be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience can conquer. And I was like, oh, this is not good. And so I called my sponsor, and I'm on the phone. I said, oh my God, her name is Karen at the time. I said, oh my God, Karen, I'm an and. And she's like, oh, Jesus, Emily, what are you reading now? Because I read this stuff, So I read this to her, when you honestly want to, you can't quit entirely, or, and I said, I can't do either one of those. She says, I know, Emily, I'll see you at the meeting, click. And I was like, oh my God, it was just finally that last nail in the coffin that I have alcoholism. Because when I got sober, I was only 51% alcoholic. I mean, how could I possibly be alcoholic? It's 49% not alcoholic. I just couldn't believe I was alcoholic. So that was my first job, to figure out, what alcoholism was. And I got a home group and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, and so I had fun drinking, I guess. I don't know. So I got sober. Let's see. I started drinking when I was 14 in high school. I went to high school. I went to a boarding school. If you haven't done co-ed boarding in high school, you absolutely missed it. It was an absolute blast. It was an absolute blast. I did everything, and I was glad to get out of it. It was a mess. It was a real mess, but I had a lot of fun, and I met a lot of people, and whatever. But I had a lot of fun, and I was raised up in St. Louis, and we moved to where did we go? Thank you. We moved to my husband's here. We moved to Cottonwood, and we moved because I couldn't breathe. My parents. What I know now is my parents gave up their whole life and drugged their sick kid to Cottonwood, Arizona, so that she could breathe. And I was about 10 or 12 when that happened, and they decided that, well, and I did everything that, I was in the brownies, and I did my mom did all the PTA stuff, and we had cookies, and life was okay, and so they decided, well, we really don't like Mingus for whatever reason. I was just oblivious to all this that was going on. So they said, okay, well, we'll send you down to Orem. If you know where Orem is, I went to high school down Orem, and that's when I did everybody and did everything, glad to get out. And so, but it was wonderful fun. And the first time I started drinking, I was like, whew. It took away the bondage of self. It made me not care what I thought you thought of me. If you liked me, fine. If you didn't like me, fine. If I liked you, fine. You didn't, it just didn't make any difference. And I always liked to drink with the boys. I always used to like to drink with the boys because, you guys can carry, we had to carry booze in, and you're stronger than I am, so you could carry it around, and that's a good deal. And you can hold your liquor. I mean, these girls I used to drink with, oh God, they'd throw up and it'd be sticky, and I'd have their hand in one hand and my beer in the next hand, and I'd get run out of beer or whatever we'd drink. Oh, just nasty stuff, like vodka, Dr. Pepper, some kind of, high school, I don't know. And so I'm drinking this, and this had run out, and she's still throwing up, and I'd give her hair back, and I'd go find more booze. I just, no patience, and you boys didn't seem to get as sick, or if you did, I didn't know. And so anyway, but it took away what I thought you thought of me, and I could come out, and I could play, and I could have fun, and I could relax. And I used that, I chased that for a long time. I got sober when I was 42. I'll do the quick math for you. I'm not going to be, I am 60. Sad. Sad, isn't it? It's just sad. Whatever. But anyway, so I drank from 14 to 42, so I drank a good long time. And like I say, in high school we started drinking hard liquor because it got you there real fast. But I could drink everybody under the table, including myself, but I was the last one under the table. I could always drink everybody under the table, and nobody had to teach me how to do that. I just start drinking, and everybody else would be throwing up or passed out, and I'm just like, and then I went to college, and I'm always the one, what time is it? It's time for the last beer run, it's time to go, and we got to get to the store before they close, and everybody's like, oh, they're all passed out, and I'm like, no, let's drink, and, I think that's part of the allergy, alcohol doesn't really necessarily put me to sleep, and somebody told me one time that's a sign of being alcoholic. I'm like, oh, that's bad. Another nail in the proverbial coffin. So anyway, so I got to high school, and I got caught doing everything. I'm not particularly sneaky, and so I got caught with boys, and I got caught smoking, and I got caught drinking, and I got caught smoking pot. And another reason I figured out that I might be alcoholic is because I got caught smoking pot, and they suspended me, and they said, if we catch you again, we're going to expel you. And I'm like, I can't go home. And there was nothing wrong with home. My folks were fine. There was no abuse, no neglect. There was always electricity. There was always food. My mom was in the PTA and made cookies. I mean, and there was everything. I had everything. It wasn't up to them. It wasn't their fault. And so I was like, ooh, can't do that. So I quit. And we used to smoke a lot of pot, that Mexican stuff that blows up in the bong. And so, we used to do a lot of that. And I just quit. Poof, done. I quit because I wanted to stay with my friends. So I just quit. And so parties, and they would go around, that's fine. And then about, I don't know, God, in 83, before some of you were even born, in 1983, I wanted to quit smoking because of the asthma, and I was coughing all the time, and I couldn't breathe like I can now. And so okay, I'm going to quit. Picked a date, and I just quit. And if you've ever tried to quit smoking, you know it is just a bitch, an absolute bitch. So I was having a heart attack. I was numb all the way across here, clean down. So I'm having a heart attack, and it was bad. But I didn't have another cigarette, and I haven't had a cigarette since the 19th of April of '83. But I just quit. So I got plenty of, if something's going to harm me and the way I'm living, then I'll just quit doing it. If something's physically hurting me and making me sick, I don't want to do it anymore, then I got plenty of willpower and I'll just quit doing it. But I could not stop drinking. It was harming me. I knew it was harming me. I mean, hangovers, they're brutal. I mean, just brutal hangovers. And I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, if you haven't figured this out yet, that you never have to be hungover again, ever. You never, ever have to be hungover again, A, because you're never going to drink again, or B, I've learned you're supposed to drink in the morning. I didn't drink in the morning. I thought if you drank in the morning, you're alcoholic. So I never drank in the morning. So I just suffered through, a lot of Advil and whatever else I was taking. I don't even know. It was brutal. So anyway, can't remember where I was. But so I got through high school, and the booze was working. I met this guy in high school that I later married and divorced. But anyway, so I met this guy in high school, and we ended up in Phoenix for a summer. And I was drinking rum and Coke, the color of weak iced tea, because I was still on hard liquor. And it was brutal. I mean, the summer in Phoenix, it's still 103, and we're playing Frisbee in the middle of the night in the yard, and it was so hot, and I was so loaded, and it was not very fun. It really wasn't very fun. So we decided that wasn't going to work, so we went up to NAU, and we got degrees out of NAU, and they have frat parties up there, and those are fun, because they have the beer, those keg things. I never drank much keg beer, obviously, but you pump it up, and it's got the little thing, and I always liked when drugs showed up at a party. You could always tell there wasn't too many drugs back then. There was people had some cocaine and stuff, but there wasn't too much stuff. And so, but you could tell when this stuff showed up at the party, because everybody, they'd all run off to wherever they went, with the mirrors and the little, whatever they were, the shape, whatever they are, the razor blades, the little razor blades. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know anything about it. I was glad when they showed up, because everybody would leave the keg, and they would go over here, and it's me and two or three other guys, and we're just like, woohoo! We got this is ours now, and I thought that was great, because I knew there was a lot of beer in there. Whatever, like I said, I don't qualify for NA, obviously. I just didn't do that many drugs. And so, but beer was, it was still working. And in there, I had to switch. After the summer of rum and Coke, I thought, I can't keep doing this. I'm going to switch to beer, because it comes in little cans. It's measured. It's like a pill. It's dosed out already. They pre-dose. How convenient. They pre-dosed it for you. All you got to do is remember how many you've drank, and then you'll have some kind of control. I'm trying to control my drinking, and I'm not even 20 years old, and I'm trying to control my drinking. So, and if you're young, you can be alcoholic. Don't worry about it. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Yeah. And so I switched from this hard liquor to beer, and it's, and then I'd count them. There was a big counter, because I was trying to control my drinking. And so I'd drink them, and I'd set them on the counter, and then they get to be a lot, and so I'd throw those away, and I'd start another pile. I said, well, this is not working. And so, but anyway, so I had switched to beer, and like I got to school, and I just was, I was insecure, I was afraid, I cried a lot, my stomach hurt. I had to stick a thing down my throat the other day, and it was about 6 months ago, and they're looking for whatever they're looking for. And the guy pulled the thing out, and we were asleep, and so he comes back and he talks to you, he says, well, there's something, your stomach was hurt or something, there's a scar or something. So that's college. My stomach hurt all the time. Oh, it hurt. Oh God, it used to hurt. And one doctor told me one time that I had alcoholic gastritis, and my solution to that was not to go back to him, because he's calling me an alcoholic. The solution is drastic. They want you to not drink at all. Can't do that. So anyway, so we got through college, and I ended up marrying this guy. I married this guy that I met in high school, and we drank together, and we had a lot of fun drinking. But I wanted to not drink. I always wanted to not drink. And so I was always trying to control my drinking. I was always trying to, let's maintain, be cool, and I was like, oh God. And so, and I wasn't really drinking every day in college, because college just, my stomach hurt. It was a lot of stuff. but I was afraid. Like I said, I was afraid, and I cried a lot. And so anyway, so we got out of school, and we ended up in Missouri, and I drank a lot in Missouri, and I'm still drinking beer, but I'm really trying to control my drinking. And my mother came to visit one time, and I remember we had to work in town, and so, and it's state liquor. If you ever lived when there's state liquor, ooh, it's bad. Real bad, because you always have to go to the same place to buy your booze. Like you can't go to the Safeway or the Ralph's or the, Piggly Wiggly or whatever you're going to go to. You always have to go to this same place, and it's always the same guy. And, you can only have so many parties. And so you just, you go in and he's got it on the counter, and he's like, because and I buy a 12-pack of beer every night on the way home from work, and I drink it, on the way home. You can only, driving is only illegal if you get caught. And so, and I never got caught, thank you God. My sponsor used to get arrested all the time, and she told me, and I've never even been arrested, but she says, Emily, she was selling herself. And so she says, well, Emily, you only cry the first time. I said, okay, well, I don't want to find out. And so anyway, but my mom was there, and I was drinking, and I got home with this open 12-pack of beer, and she said, what are you doing? And I'm like, and how do you not drink? I couldn't figure out how to live through the day. I could get through, and especially after my kids were born, and I had 2 kids, pretty quick order, and I could get through the day, if I knew at the end of the day that I was going to be able to drink. Can I just relax, just for a minute? I would even get, I would even get relief if I knew I was going to drink. So I tried to control my drinking with the cans. That didn't work. So I thought, I'll go to church, because I knew I'd read The Spiritual Experience. I had a sister-in-law, and she got sober when my son was born, and she passed out big books like Playing Cards and thought we all needed to find God and get sober and kumbaya. And I was like, no. And so, but I guess that's the big book I had, because I had a book and I was reading it, and I totally forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, so I totally forgot. It's going to be good too. Anyway, so it's going to be real good. Oh, I'm trying to control my drinking. The cans, and then I was going to go to church. And I love church. I don't go to church, but I love church. It's beautiful. They got the pageantry. They got the little outfits. They got the singing. I love the singing, and they got the flowers. I love the flowers. And we had this great preacher, and, okay, great, Sunday, there's a God. Because I wanted a contact with God. I wanted, excuse me, I knew there was a God. I was never atheist or agnostic. I knew there was one. I don't know if you can prove it or not, so I guess that makes me agnostic. But I knew there was one, and I wanted one in my life, but how do you maintain that conscious contact? How do you feel that, And so I'd go on Sundays, and Sunday night, no, I don't want to drink, there's a God, and he's in charge, and he's got it, and, he's helping me. And then Monday, I was like, okay, there's a God. And Monday night, I was like, okay, there's a God, And then by Tuesday morning, I was like, I'm drinking tonight. Because I had no prayers to say, I had no faith. I didn't really believe, I didn't trust. And so I got relief on Tuesday morning knowing that I was going to drink that night. Another nail. So I tried church, I tried counting, this is a good one, somebody said, well, if you drink a beer and a water, and if you drink beer, if you're a beer drinker, all you got to do is pee. All you ever do is pee. And so you throw in a water because you got to get enough beer, it's just, you might as well just live in the bathroom. That didn't work. I tried the weekend experiment. If you ever tried that, I'm not going to drink just at the weekends. Okay, so Friday, Saturday, and then the next Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then there's Monday Night Football, and then, now there's football on Thursday night, and, and it just wrapped around, and within, 3 weeks, I was back to every day. I started drinking every day after my son was born. He'll be, let's see, how old is Eric? He's 30, I don't even know, 3 maybe, 34, 33, something. He was born in 88. Anyway, and so, and I knew I could get through the day. Like I said, I knew I could get through the day. And I had 2 kids in 16 months. And that's a lot of, crying and poop and diapers. And, I just was wound. And I could get through the day if I knew at the end of the day I could just sit down and rest. And so kids cook for 9 months. If you know anything about babies, they cook for 9 months. I made it about 8 months before I had to start drinking again. I was drinking 3-2 beer. Because I didn't know I was alcoholic. How am I supposed to know I'm alcoholic? I didn't know I was alcoholic. I quit drinking, because, that's what you're supposed to do, and I didn't want my kids to be, the reason I quit drinking, Another way I tried to control my drinking, the reason I quit drinking is because I didn't want my kids to be born with fetal alcohol syndrome, because if I knew they had that, then you'd know how much I was drinking, and I'd really have to quit. And so I thought, okay, fine, I'll quit. The selfless martyr. I'll quit, but I couldn't make it. Like I said, I made it 8 months, and I'm drinking 3-2 beer. I nursed my kids drunk. I'm not particularly proud of that, but it made them sleep. And they're fine. I'm here to tell you right now, they're fine. They both got college degrees, daughter's an engineer, son's in the Navy, they're fine. He's drinking, she's not drinking, but he's drinking. He should be here. But that's up to him and God. So anyway, so I could get through what I needed to get through. I had these 2 kids, and I was drinking every day, and my recipe at the time was 2. That's what they tell you. That's what you tell your mother, that's what you tell the doctor, that's what you tell the cop. It's 2. You've had 2. And so I've had 2. And then, it was 2, and then it was 3 on the weekends. And then it was 3 during the week and 4, and you know what's happening, it's 4 on the weekends. And I'm just drinking more and more. And for some reason, I remember my daughter was in 5th grade, and I was drinking 5 during the week, and then the weekends were just, whatever, however much you want to drink. And I was starting to pay a pretty good physical price for that. I don't weigh all that much, and I'm drinking 6, 8, 10 beers. I could never really down a 12-pack very successfully. But, I could go through 8 or 10 beers, and God, you just hammered. And staggering around, and my skin's pretty white, and I get the mystery bruises. If you've ever gotten the mystery bruises, I looked like a Dalmatian, for Christ's sake. I just was like, on your legs, my chookies, and I was like, how did I get that? And Jesus, what happened? And there was never any violence in my house. If anybody was violent, it was me. He'd pass out, and I'd hit him with a broom and call him all kinds of bad names. And I was pretty bent about some of the stuff he was doing, but he never hit me. He never abused me. My ex-husband and my present husband, neither have ever abused me. And so anyway, I'm paying a pretty good physical price. My right side hurt. If you know anything about anatomy, your liver's under here, and it hurt all the time. And I was like, this is not good, and my face was really red, it's redder than it is now, and it was all kind of pimply, and it hot and cold at the same time, if you know that feeling. That was bad. I didn't really appreciate that. And I could never get my fingernails clean. I remember that, because when you're sweaty and you're swollen and you're sick and you're hungover, and the dirt just kind of stuck under there, and I just could never get my and I washed all kinds of dishes, just, God, and it was not good. And so I'm drinking, and this ex-husband of mine is doing some stuff with some people that he said he wouldn't do when we walked down the aisle, and that really pissed me off. And so I tried to drink myself to death in 2001 on beer. If you ever try to do that, it doesn't work. If you don't involve some drugs in that, you're going to die on the toilet before anything happens. And so I quit drinking in 2001, in March of 2001, and I started to get to some meetings. I got sober in Serenity Hall in Whittier, and so I went into these meetings, and they were bleak. It was dreary and dark, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. I just couldn't understand it at all. And they would talk, and I just couldn't understand it. And I don't know if you're from LA, but they have business cards. Nobody out here really has them. They have business cards. You got your name and your phone number, and you give it. And so these little old ladies, and I thought they were ancient. They were damn near dead. And they had these long witch fingers, and they were big long nails because they smoked, and they were yellow. And here, honey, here's my card. And I'm like, oh my God, I was 42. You guys are dead. And I was like, there's no way they can understand what's going on in my life. I got an ex-husband that's cheating on me, and my kids are in high school, and I haven't worked for 20 years because I stayed home with my kids, and my life is coming apart, and I'm supposed to talk to the little witch fingers? I don't think so. And so I'd smile and say thank you, and I'd just come home with this handful of cards because they were all trying to help me, and I'd just throw them away, So that was 2001. So then I got drunk again. We went to Japan on a trip, and I was drunk on the plane, and I drank for 2.5 more years. And that's when the drinking really, I just drank. I didn't, like I said, I didn't drink in the morning, but I drank with abandon. It was good because my kids started to drive, and they could drive, driving lessons, and I'm hammered, and they're driving. How can you get a DUI? Because they're, I don't know. I'm sure I could have. And so I wanted to not drink. Like I said, I was always counting, and all the methods I used to try to control my drinking, and I didn't, like I said, it didn't work. And so I had all these books, and I had the one that my daughter or my sister-in-law liked cards. So I guess that's how I got my first big book. And I would get books at the library. I'd go to the library and get books on alcoholism. I would get books on, cirrhosis. I would get books on, addiction, whatever. And I would buy books, Barnes and Noble or Bookland or whoever was still in business. And I would buy them and I'd read them and I'd read them and I'd sit on the deck, because we lived in LA and it's always nice, and I'd sit on the deck and I would read those books and I would just cry and cry and cry, because every time I turned the page, oh my God, I'm alcoholic. Oh my God, I'm alcoholic. And I'd turn the page and I'd cry and cry, and alcoholic, alcoholic, alcoholic. And that went on probably for about 3 or 4 months, probably a summer. And it must not have been a summer, it must have been a fall after the kids went to school. But anyway, because I got sober in January. And so I just couldn't do it another day. And finally, the last day, and I don't remember the timing, but I remember I was crying, and I came in and I stood in the hall of the house, and I was done. And I said, God, please take the house, take the car, take the kids, but please, God, don't let me drink anymore. And something happened. I felt something happen. And we had a ton of stuff. Houses paid off, cars are paid off, boats paid off. Take it. I'm done. I cannot drink anymore. Please, God, help me. And that was the end of my drinking. And I can't remember if I actually drank after that anymore. And I can't remember how long it was between the time I said that honest prayer and the time I got back to meetings. But I went back to the exact same meetings that I had been going to, and the people were brilliant. They had changed. They had obviously been studying, and they had learned their lessons, and they were able to pass them on to me. And I was like, these guys are great. And I remember when I figured out that chapter 5 was in the book. They read chapter 5 at the beginning of the meeting. Rarely have we seen a person fail. And I thought, I really read that, and I just soaked it up like a dry sponge. I was dying for some kind of a solution to my alcoholism. And they read that, and somebody said, well, it's in the book. And I'm like, oh my God, it's in the book. And I went home and I just read. I was like, oh my God, it's right here. It's right here. I was so excited to have that. And so, I started to get to some meetings, and my kids were in high school at the time, and they did okay in high school. They weren't in any trouble. But anyway, so I started to get to some meetings, and this guy I was married to at the time was kind of a gregarious guy, and he says, well, while we're sober, because who's going to stay sober? I didn't think for a minute that he got sober about 3 days after I did. That's another story. And so he says, while we're sober, let's go to this big meeting on the other end of town. We went to the Pacific Group, and I'm thinking date. I'm thinking draw a heart in the sand, neck under the bridge. I'm thinking, I'm going to get laid. I don't know what I'm thinking, but I'm thinking date, And so we went over to the Pacific Group. It's a big, huge meeting, and it was great. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And this guy, Dave, redheaded Dave, who's now bald Dave, because it's been almost 20 years. And so he says, well, if you like this meeting, there's a meeting in Bellflower. And I knew where Bellflower was because it was right down the freeway. Now, I stayed home. I didn't go out at night, and the meetings are at night. And I had to get on the freeway. I was scared to death. I was panicked. I just was like, how do people do this? You get on the freeway by yourself, I'm like, and so I liked that. And so PG meets on a Wednesday, and then some other guy came up and he says, oh, by the way, Bellflower's having a gratitude breakfast on Sunday. And I'm like, that sounds lame. Like a social, like a potluck, like a ice cream social. I have to talk to people. I don't know how to deal with you if there's nothing between me and you but air. If I got a beer on board, I got some booze on board, I can talk to you until midnight. But with nothing, I'm just like, how? So PG is on Wednesday, and then we went to this gratitude breakfast on Sunday, and then my old home group Bellflower met on Monday. And I'm like, well, Wednesday, Sunday, that's a lot of AA. That's an awful lot of AA. I was like, okay, whatever. And so I started going, and I only went one meeting a week, thank you very much, because I had two kids in high school, and I didn't want the party to be at my house because my ex-husband was never home because he was crosstown in West Hollywood doing things that I didn't think he should be doing. And I stayed in that marriage way too long because my kids were in high school, and I didn't want my kids to be the kids in school that, your mother got dumped for somebody else. That's whatever. And so I stayed too long. But anyway, and so I got sober on one meeting a week, and I got sicker and sicker and sicker. I wasn't drinking, and I didn't have enough program. And so if you're not going to a lot of meetings and you don't have a lot of sponsorship and you're not really doing it, you're screwing yourself. You might as well just go drink. It's more comfortable. It's much more comfortable. You might get arrested and, throw up, but, whatever. But I got sober on one meeting a week, and my sponsor was beside herself, and she says, Emily, she was just crazy. And she says, Emily, what you're doing is you're taking the class and you're not reading the book. And I thought, well, you know, because I'm a big school person. And I said, son of a gun, she painted me in the corner. I said, I've got to go to the book study. Started to go to the book study, started to go to Thursday night, Saturday night, Tuesday night. Pretty soon I'm going every night, and I got 9 meetings a week, and I feel great. Mentally, I feel great. My marriage is coming apart. My kids dumped me. My kids left. They didn't really leave. They got good grades in high school, and so they went to college. My husband dumped me for his boyfriend, and the cat died. And I was not a happy camper. So I got sober with 2 kids, a husband, 2 dogs, and a cat. And 18 months later, it's me and the 2 dogs. And I was not a happy camper. My hair was real short. I was about 20 pounds thinner than I am now. And if you sat next to me at the meeting, you left pissed off because I was so angry. I was so angry. But I stayed sober. I didn't take another drink, and I went to a meeting. And I didn't take another drink, and I went to a meeting. And my sponsor got me into a bunch of H&I stuff, and I didn't like the H&I stuff. I don't care if you stay sober or not. She's like, oh, God, Emily. And I was like, ah. And so I had to go to these meetings with these girls, and they weren't going to stay sober. And they do. If you're working with new people and you get discouraged, please don't, because they do stay sober. We went to a roundup. Went to a roundup the Tri-State Roundup over in Laughlin. And this big, huge Mexican girl comes running. The Mexicans are big, fat, and happy, and there's a lot of hair, and she comes running up to me, and Emily, and I'm like, ooh, and I'm hugging on her, and she's like, oh my God, you gave me my first 24-hour day book when I was at Foley House. And I was like, my, that wasn't yesterday. It was probably 10 years. It was probably 10 years, and she made it. She stayed. She got hooked up with some people over at Los Amigos, and as another club in LA, and she stayed, and she made it. And so if you're working with new people and you just think they're not getting it and they're not hearing it, don't worry about it. Just keep going, because they're gonna hear it sometime, somewhere, somehow, if they're looking for it. And I was desperate to find something. That's why I didn't leave. That's why I didn't leave, because I was desperate to find a new way of living. And so she got me hooked up in all this H&I stuff, and I finally got my teeth in it, and I'm kind of an H&I service junkie right now. I like to do stuff, and it's fun, and we live over here now. We live over there, and there's not near as much stuff to do here in Arizona as there was in LA, because there's not so many people, and population base isn't so much, and so there's not as many commitments and stuff. So I've been involved in service, I've been involved in some general service and some of those roundup-y kind of things that we have, and the assemblies and that kind of stuff. And it really is fun. You get to know all kinds of people and learn all kinds of stuff, and it's a pretty good deal. And so, today I don't know, I think maintaining that conscious contact with God is the best thing that I do. I got all messed up about 6 months ago, and oh man, I was a mess, and I was screaming and stomping around the house and crying and carrying on, and I was in a bad way, a real bad way. And I was like, God, I got to get back to what I used to do. Not that I had changed anything, but I just, it's like, I don't know if you all know about boats, and you steer, the heading is, 12, and so you're going 12, and then you start going 13 and 14, and pretty soon you're off at 20, and you're not, but you haven't really changed, it just, kind of ooched. And I was like, oh my God, I got to get back to AA, not that I'd even left. And so I started I picked up another meeting. I picked up a noon women's meeting up in Sedona, and I don't like women's meetings, but it's working. So I picked up another meeting, and I started listening to those little tapes. I call them tapes. They're really not. They're CDs, and they're not even CDs anymore because it's on a stick. We had tapes. We even had 8 tracks, but I didn't have AA 8 tracks. But anyway, and so, not that old. And so, so I started to get back to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it didn't take but a month. It didn't take but a month, until I got to this meeting, and we need a bell ringer, and I'm like, oh God, they want to give me a commitment. I can't say no, will you be the bell ringer? Oh yeah, I'll be the bell ringer, yeah. And so I'm back to stable again. My first sponsor used to talk about a 5. And I was like, a 5? What's a 5? She said, we want 5. And I'm like, oh, what's that? It's not in the book. I've read the book. I'm a good baby, I read the book. And she says, 5, Emily, you want 5. You don't want 0 and 10 and 0 and 10. You want 5. And I said, okay, can I have just, 1 and 9? I'll take that, instead of just, oh, God. And so I'm happy to report today, not 5, but, it's a 7 and whatever, below 5, 3. I mean, it's just not, my emotions don't take such a big turn anymore. And I'm grateful for that, because it used to just be debilitating. I remember being so depressed, I couldn't even hardly get out of bed. If I got out of bed, I would weigh more because I was more depressed. I was depressed. It was bleak when I was drinking. And it just kind of creeps on you slowly, and before you know it, you painted yourself in a corner, one drink at a time, and how do you get out of that corner? There's no way I can get myself out of that corner. I had to say that prayer. I had to give up. And for me to say that I can't do something and to give up, that's a tough pill. My mom used to call me Emmy. And, it used to be, in the house it was Emmy do. Emmy do. Which it means all kinds of things. It means, here, let me do it. It means, here, you're too stupid to do it, let me do it. Here, you're doing it too slow, let me do it. I can do it myself, thank you very much, and I don't need any of your help or input. I was always been very independent, I've been a tomboy, I can take care of myself, thank you very much. I don't need your help. And so for me to say that prayer and actually cave in and believe and trust in a God, it's been quite a journey. And so, like I say, if you're new, and Eric, and I can't remember, somebody back there and somebody over there. The reason I remember Eric is because my son's name's Eric. And, it's been a pretty good deal, but it's not without effort. It's not without effort on my part. And I have to do it every single day. I get up in the morning, I get up at 5:30 because, well, the time changed, but I get up in the summer at 5:30. One of my girls calls at 6 o'clock, and she starts my day. And before that, I read the 24-hour day book, I say my prayers, I make a gratitude list. I do that stuff every day, because it makes me stable. I wouldn't do it if it didn't help me. If it didn't make me feel better, why would you do it? Why would I get in the car with these two denizens and take my life in my hands and drive over the hill, because there's deers over there, I was thinking, God, we're going to get a deer, and but I feel great, if somebody asked me to do it, and thank you, Nan, for inviting me. I appreciate the invitation. And AA is a fun deal. And if you're not having fun, like I said, get involved in it. Please get involved in it, because it's been the funnest thing I've done ever. It's even funner than drinking, because, half the drinking I did, I can't remember anyway. So I'm glad to see you guys, and I'm glad to be over here. And my name is Emily, and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you.